Okay, good evening, one and all, for today's session of Sharda Education Society's Anand Vishwa Gurukul College of Law, Vidyalikit NetBit. And today we have with us Dr. Uday Varunjikar sir, who is a noted advocate himself, and he is a member of Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. And in fact, just to give you a brief idea about this session, after lockdown was declared, our students of law college and members of public, we started this session called Vidyalikit NetBit, where different personalities, eminent personalities from various fields. So from legal field, we had Shri Gajanan Chavan sir, retired Justice Bannurmat sir. You are here with us today. And from social perspective, Dr. Vikas Amte sir. So many personalities came and guided our students on various topics. Today we are very glad and we are very happy to have you sir today to guide all of us on this occasion. In fact sir, I should put this on record and thank you that when I asked you about the session, you immediately agreed. And one of the most important feature is sir was very kind to say that he can speak on the topic also, and something which is off the topic but very important from the practice perspective. And therefore sir suggested the contempt of court topic, which is very much in discussion today, and our students will definitely be helped with the guidance that you have given. Before I hand over the session to you sir, I also welcome the treasurer of our Sharda Education Society, Shri Akshar Parasnis sir. And before I hand over the session to you sir, I would first request Professor Amruta Karalikar madam to kindly formally introduce Dr. Uday Varunjikar sir. Over to you, Amruta madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pradhan sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good evening, one and all. It's really a privilege to me to introduce our today's guest, Mr. Uday Varunjikar sir. Sir has completed his BLS LLB from Pune University in the year 1994 with first class. Sir also completed his master's from the Mumbai University. Sir holds a diploma in taxation law as well as labor law with first class. Sir has also completed his PhD from Pune University on the topic of gender justice, human rights, and preconception and prenatal diagnostic techniques Act of the year 1994, critical appraisal of statutory and judicial prospect. Sir has 5 years teaching experience in couple of commerce colleges in Mumbai. Sir has been practicing in the High Court of Bombay for more than 26 years. Sir handled more than 14,500 cases in the High Court so far. Sir also successfully handled various public interest litigations. Sir was invited to attend a spoke at 4th BRIC Legal Forum at Moscow, Russia on the 1st December 2017 on the topic of sports law in the BRICS member country state. Sir also invited for the national seminar on sports law in India, issues and challenges, organized by Sri Navamal Firodia Law College affiliated to University of Mumbai, University of Pune. Sir has also represented various associations, federations of sports before different judicial and quasi-judicial authorities. Sir also represented Swimming Federation, Football Association before judicial authorities. Sir has a great contribution in implementation of provisions of Persons with Disability Act 1995, which results in the employment of more than 10,000 disabled in the government employment. Sir also contributed in the implementation of biomedical waste rules, where Honorable High Court at Bombay was pleased to appoint Sir as a commissioner. Sir has handled various issues concerning noise pollution, water pollution, as well as air pollution. Sir has been appointed by the state of Maharashtra as a member of committee appointed for formulation of standard operating procedure under the Transplantation of Human Organs Act of the year 1994. Sir held the post of the member in the committee formed by State of Maharashtra under Transplantation of Human Organs Act. Sir was invited on the various occasions by University of Pune, Shivaji University of Kolhapur, Bharatiya Vidyapeeth and Mumbai University. Sir was a resource person for training of all judicial officers in the state of Maharashtra from 2010 onwards. Sir is also recipient of the Ethical Legal Practitioner Awards for Trans Asia Chamber of Commerce. As well as Sir is a recipient of the award from Mumbai Grahak Panchayat for valuable contribution in the protection and promotion of consumer rights. Sir is having keen interest in the sports and development in the field of sports. Sir spoke in the first Lavasha Human Rights Conference, New Delhi, on new technologies, privacy and mass surveillances. Will human rights survive? Sir participated from 23rd August 2018 to 25th of August 2018 as one of the speakers of Indian delegation in the 5th BRICS Legal Forum held at Cape Town, South Africa. Sir spoke on the topic of need of establishment of International Commercial Arbitration Center for BRICS member states. Sir also participated from November 30, 2017 to December 1st, 2017 in the 4th BRICS Legal Forum at Moscow and spoke on the topics of India against terrorism in the framework of the Constitution of India and development of sports law in BRICS member states. So participated from 10th of September 2016 to 12th of September 2016 in the 3rd BRICS Legal Forum at New Delhi. Now, a few awards that Sir has received, I would like to mention over here. Sir received award from National Association of Blind India. Sir received award from the National Federation of Blind India. Sir received award from the Trans Asia Chamber of Commerce as Pillars of Hindustani Society. Important posts held by Sir, I would like to mention over here. Sir was Vice President, Bar Association of India, Delhi. President of Consumer Court Advocate Association, Mumbai. Sir elected as a member of Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, a statutory body. And Sir was ex-Vice President of Advocate Association of Western India, the oldest bar association of India established in the year 1862. Sir, today we are really fortunate to have you with us. Thank you so much and welcome once again. Over to you, Pradhan sir.
Thank you so much, madam. Sir, I once again officially welcome you and we are all eager to hear you. Over to you, sir. The session is all yours. Thank you.
Namaskar, Pradhan sir. Thank you very much to Professor Amruta, the office bearer who is present, and all the young friends who are on that side. It is one of the such occasion which usually I love to attend all such functions. By sharing few thoughts with a young generation and giving some homework for them, I feel that I am discharging the burden which is casted on my shoulders. Few minutes back, up to 4:58, I was in an online hearing. During the middle of that online hearing, I called Principal Pradhan sir and I suggested him that there is a possibility that I may be delayed, but I am fortunate and the honorable judges also were kind enough to accommodate and relieve myself from the online hearing, and so that I am present with all of you. As a student of law, I am sure you must have read different news in the newspaper. As a student, I must tell you, you will have to develop an analytical mind, and for that purpose, you will have to develop a habit of reading different newspapers. A very same news or very same order, you will find that the news or the order passed by the court is getting reported from a different angles. there are different colors which are added to that particular news. The news which I am referring is with reference to the Contempt of Court Act. I am sure in last 15 days you must have read news about the Contempt of Court Act in the regional newspaper as well as a national level newspaper. Electronic media has also referred to that news, but they avoided, and perhaps they rather were not ready to jump into the entire litigation or entire debate, and therefore electronic media comparatively kept mum, but the print media has covered a news with reference to the Contempt of Court proceedings which are happening in Supreme Court of India in last around 15-20 days. I am not going to refer to the person against whom the notice is issued. I am not going to name that gentleman. Neither I am going to name and share the facts which are in that case, because the matter is sub judice. As on today, that case is closed for judgment, and we all are awaiting the judgment. And as a student of law, I am observing that judgment also, and I expect that there will be some more value addition to the process of law by virtue of the proposed judgment, which is likely to be delivered maybe within another 10 or 15 days. Let us come back to the Contempt of Court Act, in respect of which the topic is suggested by the authorities. A history of this Contempt of Court Act goes back to long back in 1926. There was an enactment. This enactment was made prior to independence. After getting an independence, there was an act of 1952. For all those young friends, both these legislations are available online. So therefore you can check the provisions of 1926 Act as well as 1952 Act by asking to your Google Mosi. Google Mosi, I am sure you must be aware that whatever you are asking, that Mosi is going to give you ready-made feedback to you. But don't stop at the answer which Google Mosi will give you, because to be very frank, Google is a search engine that can provide you whatever is available in the net. So therefore, unless and until somebody feeds that data online, you are not going to get any answer from Google. So coming back to the basic issue, you will find that 1926 Act, there were only 3 sections. Prior to independence, there were only 3 sections which gave permission to High Court to punish for the contempt of court. Let us go back in 1926 when the Supreme Court was not there. Supreme Court was established in 1950. At that point of time, High Courts were there. Initially, High Courts were having a territorial jurisdiction, but later on, it was expanded. So therefore, this 3-section Act says that this is a power which is given to the Honorable High Court, and the punishment will be 6 months imprisonment or a fine or both. But ultimately this was having a territorial issue, because there were various princely states at that point of time who were not under the jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction of the High Court. To give you a classic example, the High Court of Bombay was there, but the boundary of the High Court of Bombay was not extended to Pune or the princely state of Bhor or princely state in Kolhapur, and they were having their own independent adjudicatory mechanism. This was long back. So therefore, there was a need for amendment in that act. And ultimately, after getting an independence, 1952 was the year when the new act was enacted. Having said about this historical background, let me take all of you back to the framework of the Constitution. We are aware that there is a freedom of speech and expression which is given to all of us under Article 19. Article 19 contemplates that you can speak whatever you want, but that is subject to the reasonable restrictions which are there under Article 19, sub-article 2. And now, therefore, question comes that whether the Contempt of Court Act, which puts some restrictions on your freedom of expression, is a constitutionally valid. In fact, I must share with you that this topic or this debate is not a new debate. This debate has attained its finality, but now one more petition is pending, and the petitioner is one Mr. N. Ram, who was a former chairman of the one of the Indian newspaper, South Indian newspaper by name Hindu. We are staying in Mumbai or around Mumbai or in the Mumbai metropolitan region. So as a student of law, I must tell you that you should develop a habit of reading the other newspapers, like not only Times of India but Hindustan Times, where the headquarters is from Delhi, like Tribune, like Hindu comes from South, like Herald or Deccan Chronicle. This will give you a different angle of the same story. So coming back to the petition which is now pending, again one more petition is filed by Mr. N. Ram, and the advocate against whom a notice has been issued by the Honorable Supreme Court, challenging constitutional validity of one of the section or other part of that one of the section, and which is still pending before the Honorable Supreme Court. Now coming back to the scheme of this act, you will find this object of this Contempt of Court Act is to define and limit the powers of the certain court to punish contempt of court. So what was the object? Let us go back to 1926 Act, where we have seen that there were territorial issues. 1952 Act, and then based on which the 1971 Act came. This is saying that the object is to define and limit the powers of certain court to punish the contempt of court. Now let us go to the contempt of court word little later. Since the topic is about the powers, so therefore legislators were wise enough at that point of time in 1971, and therefore they defined the certain courts who can take action, and they limited the power of that particular court to take an action. Action against whom? Action can be against an individual. Action can be against an artificial person that can be initiated. Action for what? Action will be for the contempt of court. Now the word court, you will find that it is already defined. The word court, you will find, is already provided in the statute books. So therefore there is no need to explain what is the meaning of the word court. But the legislator thought it fit to give the powers to only two courts, namely the Honorable High Court and the Honorable Supreme Court. Why? Let us go back to the framework of the Constitution. In the framework of the Constitution, you may note down three articles. Article 129 is an article which says that Supreme Court is a court of record. On the same line, Article 215 contemplates that the High Court is a court of record. And coupled with that, the third article is 142 sub-article 2. That says that the Honorable Supreme Court will have a power to take action with reference to the contempt of the orders which are passed by the Supreme Court. So therefore, constitutional backing to the provisions of the this Contempt of Court Act can be traced back to Article 129, 215 and 142. Now this is a constitutional framework based on which the powers are given to the courts. But there is a question which some young person can ask. That is, what is the meaning of the word court of record? Court of record means the judgments which are having a binding effect and the judgments which are having a precedential value. Along with that, the judgment in respect of which you can seek enforcement under the Contempt of Court Act. Now, what is the meaning of this? Does that mean that the Metropolitan Magistrate Court at Mumbai or a Judicial Magistrate First Class Court at Thane or a court, maybe a Civil Judge Senior Division or a District Court, whether they are not the court? I'm sorry, they are also court, but they are not court of record. So therefore, you will find there is a difference, court of record and the other courts. And for that purpose, let me take back to the scheme under the Civil Procedure Code. Take a case that there is some kind of a disobedience of the order which is passed by the lieutenant judge of the civil court, namely maybe a Civil Judge Senior Division, maybe Civil Judge Junior Division, or a judge who is a judge under the Commercial Courts Act. He can pass an order under the provisions of Order 39, Rule 2, 2A, then stacking of the defense. All provisions are there, so there is no need to go into the detail of the powers of the civil judge. But this is different than the power of contempt of court. And therefore, let us try to now understand what is the meaning of the word contempt of court. There are two types of the contempt. One is a civil contempt, another is a criminal contempt. In the case which you have read in the newspaper, you must have seen that the case was about the criminal contempt. So therefore, let us try to understand first civil contempt, because the word criminal contempt is little difficult to understand, and it is having different shades and different angles. So let us try to digest the simplest possible thing, that is a civil contempt, which is defined under section 2 subsection B. That contemplates willful disobedience to any judgment, decree, direction, writ, order, or other process of the court, and willful breach of the undertaking given to the court. Now we are aware about the terminology of the word court. There is no difficulty. Not only disobedience, there can be an argument which says that yes, there is a disobedience, but it is not willful. If you are in position to point out as an advocate for the respondent against whom a notice of contempt has been issued by the Honorable High Court or the Supreme Court, that there is no willful disobedience, but there is a disobedience, then there is a possibility that there may not be a punishment, though there is a disobedience. Therefore, the definition contemplates that there has to be a willful disobedience. There is no difficulty in understanding the word judgment, decree, direction, writ. Writ will be of the High Court or the Supreme Court, order or other process of the court. And now the next terminology is breach of the undertaking given to the court. We are aware that there may be a dispute of landlord-tenant. There may be a dispute of husband and wife who will be fighting for the child custody or the access of the child. Usually they give undertaking to the court and court accepts that undertaking. So once that undertaking is accepted and it is given a clothing or a protecting shield of the order of the court, then in that eventuality there will be a civil contempt if there is a breach of that contempt. So that particular undertaking, if not performed, then of course there will be a civil contempt. Now under the Bombay High Court appellate side rules, this civil contempt will go before the single judge usually. And let us go to the criminal contempt. Here it's something which is required to be discussed, which is required to be deliberated. And I'm going to give some classic examples. Now there are three different angles to this, rather three if we divide this definition of criminal contempt into three portions, then the first portion is about scandalizing or tending to scandalize the court. You can keep this word in mind, or you may note down. scandalize or tend to scandalize the court. Then the second is lowering the image or tend to lower the image of the court. Third is interferes or tends to interfere in the due process of any judicial proceedings. These are the three different heads. Now, under this definition, which is section 2 subsection C, you will find there is a reference about the words. So therefore, if somebody says by words, by mouth, then if all these ingredients are applicable, that can be contempt of court. If somebody speaks about that, somebody writes about that, then it is possible. If somebody makes some signature or some kind of a sign, some picture is creatively prepared, but it is possible that that creative picture can also be termed as a contempt, or maybe more particularly a criminal contempt. There may be advertisement. There may be visible representation. So just see what kind of a thought process was there when the legislators prepared this act. So spoken, written words, sign, then visible representation, and a otherwise thing is also there. A publication is also covered. So all these things are there. Now let me give an example about scandalization of the process of it. If somebody makes an allegation against the honorable judge, saying that the judge is corrupt, then what is going to happen? This is that statement which is either scandalizing the court or tend to scandalize the process of the court. Now therefore, such allegations which are made against the honorable judges will definitely invite a criminal contempt. Let me give another example with reference to the second aspect, namely lowering the image or tend to lower the image of the court in the public eyes. In the Bombay High Court, there was one unsuccessful matrimonial litigant, namely a husband, who was not happy with the judgment which was pronounced by the division bench in a family court appeal. He got frustrated and he threw his footwear on the honorable judge of the High Court. This is an act which can be called as lowering or tend to lower the image of the judiciary in the eyes of law. Let us try to understand why this act came. This act is to safeguard the entire system as such. We are aware that in the democratic principles, there are three pillars of our constitution. One of them is judiciary. And there is a possibility that there will be several such assaults, either by words spoken or written, or by visible representation or otherwise, on this pillar, which may shake the confidence of a common man, which may create interference in administration of the justice. Therefore, to keep this entire stream unpolluted, to keep this entire process of administration of justice away from the baseless allegations, this new concept of contempt of court was introduced. Let me tell you that this Contempt of Court Act is essentially based on an English concept, as I said a few minutes back. But to trace the roots of this legislation, if we go back to the framework of the Constitution of India, you will find under the 7th schedule, list 1, there is an entry number 77. So therefore, those who are interested to know the source of power of the legislature, that's the entry number 77, list 1, 7th schedule of the Constitution. There is no need to go into the detail about this. Now, having said about this kind of a source, I must once again say that the base of this entire concept is a English law. And now with reference to one of the aspect in respect of which the constitutional validity petition is pending before the Honorable High Court, which has been filed by Mr. Endra, is with reference to the scandalization. With reference to this scandalization issue, there was an opinion which was sought from the Law Commission of India. We as a student of law, we are aware that Law Commission of India is a authority which is supposed to guide the Honorable Supreme Court or even the President or maybe a state government, central government also. Now the reports of the Law Commission are already available online. So the young students of law who are on that side of my computer, they can visit the Law Commission of India website, and please note 274th Law Commission report. Advocate Pradhan, please make a SMS about this and please share it to everybody.
Yes.
274th report, which was published in the month of April 2018. Honorable Justice B.S. Chauhan, it is Chauhan from the Supreme Court of India, he was the president of that Law Commission at that point of time. And the issue was, so far as the English legislators are concerned, they have done away with the scandalization issue, which is still continued in the Indian legislation. Therefore, the issue which was referred to the Law Commission of India was whether we should now abolish scandalizing the court as a ground for taking contempt of court action. A statistic was referred in that particular Law Commission report. It's a very interesting. It says that in the entire country, there were 96,000 cases of civil contempt. Now we have understood civil contempt means disobedience, not only disobedience, willful disobedience of any order, decree, direction, judgment, order, etc., or breach of undertaking. So in the entire country, around 96 cases were there, 96,000 cases. And about the criminal, there were 583 cases which were pending. So scandalization of the court will be part of that 583. Coming back to the Supreme Court, there were 683 cases of the civil contempt which were pending and only 15 cases of the criminal contempt which were pending. And coming to the High Court, there were 96,000 civil contempt and around 563 were the criminal. We are situated in the territorial jurisdiction of Bombay High Court. So therefore, before Honorable Bombay High Court, you will find 4,981 civil contempt cases were pending. I am not saying, that's the Law Commission of India saying. And 64 criminal contempt cases were pending. And now, with reference to this, let us go ahead and let us try to understand what kind of the further provisions were made and what are the other powers which are available with the honorable judges. Yes, thank you, Mr. Pradhan, who was kind enough to share this data on the screen share. This technology has helped everybody, and we are not an exception, and rather we can't say that we will stay at the boundary and we will watch this entire technological changes. We will have to participate in this session. And I must tell you, I am learning from my younger generation, my learned juniors and our daughter and our sons. They are my teachers so far as this technological development is concerned. I am sure the young students on that side, they are also master of the technology, and perhaps I may learn from them also. Having said this, let me come back to the one more provision which is relevant. The electronic media has not covered this issue, but you will find the print media has covered this issue, because there is already a provision which says that fair and accurate reporting of the judicial proceeding is not a contempt. Just think what kind of a protection which is given. So there are only two preconditions. Reporting of whatever happening in the court is permissible, that will not be a contempt of court provided it is an accurate, provided it is a fair reporting. So there is one safeguard. So whether the reporting is a fair, whether reporting was accurate will be a question of fact, and for that purpose there can be a defense which can be agitated by an advocate who will be appearing for the respondent. In addition to this, there is a provision which says that innocent publication and distribution of the matter is not a contempt. There are two keywords. As we have seen, fair and accurate reporting, likewise innocent publication and distribution of the matter. So what is expected? The publication without any object. So therefore innocent publication and distribution of the matter. What is the meaning of the word matter? Matter means a book, pamphlet or something like that. So a distribution was having a earlier old meaning, namely physical distribution. But now in view of the Information Technology Act, forwarding or sharing of the post also becomes a distribution. So let us keep this in mind. But therefore, if there is an innocent publication and distribution of that innocent publication, then you are saved. So again a question comes, whether this is a question of fact. Yes, this is a question of fact. Now there are several lawyers who ask on the several occasions that, sir, this act seems to be very, very stringent. Draconian provisions are there. Uncontrolled powers are given to the honorable judges. And what will happen if we are required to make some kind of a complaint against the presiding officer? Because as a bar association or a member of a bar association, the advocate or the bar association can make a complaint against the honorable judges also. So against the presiding officer, if a complaint is made in respect of the presiding officer of the subordinate court, then it is not a contempt. So the idea is a complaint against the honorable judges in the Tehsil and District Court, if it is made with a view to seek redressal of the grievances, then that is not a contempt. So a limited protection is there. So the object of such representation should be to seek redressal, and that complaint should be against the presiding officer of the subordinate court. Now take a case that there is some in-camera proceedings which are going on or in-chamber proceedings which are going on. Maybe a sensitive case which is going on, in respect of which there is a order which is passed saying that don't report, or there may be a in-camera proceeding with reference to maybe POSCO Act or child custody or something like a rape case which is going on. With reference to that, if the honorable judge pass an order saying that the in-camera or in-chamber proceedings are there, and if you publish that, then it will attract a contempt of court. Now, the other defenses which are available for a civil case or a criminal case are not available in this case. I'll repeat. The test of beyond a reasonable doubt or the benefit of beyond reasonable doubt is available for an accused in a criminal trial. You will find this is not applicable so far as this act is concerned. Preponderance of probabilities is one of the tests which is applicable in the civil side. You will find that those other defenses based on the preponderance of probabilities are not available under the Contempt of Court Act. Now, the power is given to the Honorable High Court, if we are aware, that says that there can be a punishment which can be given, punishment which includes the imprisonment up to 6 months and fine of rupees 2,000 or both. There is a defense which is now available after 2006 amendment. And in the case which I made a reference in the opening portion of this lecture, in respect of that case where the judgment we are awaiting from the Honorable Supreme Court of India, application was moved by the contender or the respondent against whom the contempt notice was issued, saying that he wants to lead an evidence. 2006 amendment says that truth can be a defense. Till 2006, there was no such defense which was available. 2006 amendment contemplate that the contemner is having a option, is having a one more defense about the truth. When this act was amended in 2006 in Bombay High Court, I was perhaps the first lawyer who tried to press this right of, or press this option into service on behalf of one of the contemner. But the Honorable Supreme Court said that, Honorable Bombay High Court said that no, the action which was initiated, action which was taken by, or the act which was done by the contemner was such that there could not have been a defense as truth. That particular, my client at that point of time in 2006, when the matter came up for final hearing, was facing an allegation that he made the corruption allegation against the Honorable Deputy Charity Commissioner from that locality. So therefore, High Court, Division Bench of the Honorable High Court said nothing doing, we will not permit you to open this issue, and the defense about the truth was not granted. About the case in respect of which I made a reference, the case is pending before the Honorable Supreme Court, and the application is also filed by the contemner accused or contemner respondent, to whom the notice was issued saying that the prayer in that particular application is, I want to examine myself and lead appropriately. Now this particular contempt of court is concerned, you will find there will be a bail which can be granted to the accused persons. The cognizance of such contempt can be taken or either suo motu, we are aware that it will be own action, suo motu, or on the motion made by the Advocate General, Attorney General, whatever, whichever case may be, or any other person with the prior consent of the Advocate General. So therefore, an individual can also file a contempt petition, but with the prior permission. So far as Supreme Court is concerned, you will find Attorney General, Solicitor General, they are the authorities who can give a prior consent. After taking the cognizance, the procedure is service of that entire proceeding, bail, defense, affidavit, hearing, and then the final order. So you will find it's a comparatively a short, comparatively a handmade procedure, comparatively a procedure which is other than the civil or criminal trial. So therefore it can be called as a summary inquiry. Now the limitation for taking an action so far as the civil contempt is 1 year. That is section 20. Those who are interested, they can note down. If somebody is punished, then there is a remedy by way of an appeal. If there is a punishment by a single judge, then under the rules, if there is a latest patent appeal, then appeal to the division bench is there. If the punishment is by division bench, then the appeal will be before the Honorable Supreme Court. There is a rule making power which is given to the Honorable Bombay High Court as well as the Supreme Court. So therefore, those who are interested, they can also download the contempt of court rules which are available online. Now, in this background, now the issue comes whether the Indian context or Indian scenario is such which requires an amendment to this act. Let us go back to 1926. 1926, the act was enacted. At that point of time, there was a different regime. The roots of this act is having roots in the colonial era. The act was essentially intended to protect the honorable judges who were British judges at that point of time. After adopting the welfare state legislation, after adopting rule of law, after giving a freedom of speech, after recognizing a right of life, whether now this Contempt of Court Act requires an amendment, that is the issue. Now the petition is still pending. That is about the scandalization to be removed from the definition of the word criminal contempt. But it is for all of us to ponder upon this. It is for all of us to debate on this, whether we are required to, whether we need an amendment in this entire legislation. As a student of law, I must tell you, this act is not there. This act is not prescribed in your syllabus. You can choose any syllabus of any university in the entire country. Bar Council of India frames the syllabus so far as the law courses are concerned by exercising the power under the Legal Education Rules 2008. But this act is not covered. You will be surprised, this is not prescribed in any program of a LLM. There is no any certificate course or a diploma course where these provisions are included. Most of the lawyers will come to know once they get notice from the honorable judge or from the other side advocate making an allegation against your client. So therefore, this is a time when we will have to upgrade ourselves, update ourselves, and learn different facets of the contempt of court. And let me tell you, there is a judgment of ex-Captain Harish Uppal, which has been delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court of India around 15-20 years back. That judgment says that the advocates are the officers of the court and they cannot go on strike. Having said this, I must tell you that in that circumstances, if the Bar Association goes on strike, then there are contempt cases which have been filed against the lawyers and or the bar associations. So therefore, we'll have to keep this in mind. So how to ventilate the grievances of the Bar Association? There are provisions which have been made by the High Court rules, the Supreme Court rules, how to ventilate the grievances of the advocates. On the same line, there is a need to dilute the provisions of the Contempt of Court Act to some extent so that redressal of the grievance is possible. If you ask me whether Contempt of Court Act is needed for our society, yes. I am of the view that yes, it is needed. But the next question would be whether in the present form or otherwise, my answer would be yes. Now, there is a time to revisit this Act. 1971 Act. So therefore, from 71, much water has flowed. Now it's a time when we should reconsider the concepts which were introduced in 1971. 49 long years are over. In view of this, now it's a high time when we will have to consider the provisions of this Act and consider whether the Act requires further amendment. I must also tell at this juncture that there were different committees which were appointed at that point of time. Those who are student of law, they can refer to H.N. Sanyal Committee of 1961 who can definitely take some assistance from that committee report. 1963 there was a joint parliamentary committee report which is also available. All those things which were available which led to formulation of 1971 Act is a old things or the things which can be called as the things which have become outdated in the context of law. And therefore, we will have to revisit the provisions of the Contempt of Court Act. Perhaps expansion of the provisions may be required, explaining certain concepts may be required. As I said that sharing of or forwarding those kind of pictures which may cause or which may invite contempt of court or maybe a criminal contempt, that needs a further clarification in the statute book. You will find there were certain posters and pamphlets or the different kind of such acts which were there, on the basis of which against a journalist, against a creative artist, the action was initiated. Let us go back in the history book. You will find there is a judgment of Narmada Bachao Andolan. Against that judgment, Arundhati Roy made a comment, who is an international book writer who has won the prizes, but the Honorable Supreme Court issued a notice to that lady. She was required to tender an apology. Ultimately, any Tom, Dick and Harry, if he or she want to criticize the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court or the High Court, yes, it is possible, but that will have to be an academic criticism. If you are not having that academic strength or ability, then I am afraid such an act may invite a jail so far as the Contempt of Court Act is concerned. One more angle which I would like to add is this. By influx of time, the third aspect of the criminal contempt, which I pointed out, that interfere or tend to interfere in the process of administration of justice, has been interpreted to include the honorable advocates also. If somebody makes an allegation against the advocate, then that can also be called as a criminal contempt. We are aware that nowadays there is a tendency, and that tendency is increasing tendency, to make allegation against the advocate of the opponent, so that that opponent's lawyer will get himself relieved from that matter. We, as a member of a bar council, we come across several cases in which the cases are filed in respect of the allegations which are not at all relevant. The concepts of the disciplinary authority under section 35 is not at all applicable, but there are advocates who are facing a disciplinary cases at the behest of the opponent litigant. So therefore, such kind of act which gives a threat to the opponent lawyer or which makes an allegation on the opponent lawyer is also a part and parcel of a criminal contempt. There are large number of judgments. Those judgments will tell you that again and again it has been held that a threat is given to a lawyer, then that threat can be called as interference in administration of justice. So therefore, those young lawyers who are on that side, they can update about this aspect also. Now, having given the dark portion as well as the silver lining portion of this enactment, I think it was my duty, which was on my shoulder, to update your knowledge and give some input about the provisions of the law, which is not prescribed in the syllabus. And as rightly said by Professor and the in-charge principal, Suyash Pradhan, then I believe on giving some kind of homework for all of you, and which is beyond the prescribed topic. So therefore, those are different judgments, those classic examples of criminal contempt, those the old act, the law commission report, as well as in English jurisprudence or English legislation, why they have done away with scandalization of the court as an ingredient of contempt of court, that all you will have to find out. I believe and I trust that this homework is enough for the day. So therefore, you will have to go in the library. You will have to make some search on the Google Mosi, and then based on that, I'm sure you will get a good answer. And then we can say that you are having a sufficient knowledge about the Contempt of Court Act. I was given a 1 hour time. The professor who introduced myself, she consumed almost 5 or 6 minutes. So if we add that, then almost around 50 minutes I have completed, or other 48, 49 minutes. Let us stop here. If there is any question, I am available for the search of answer to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful guidance. Can we take a couple of questions, sir, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
First, we have with us our student Madhumilin Kamte. I am unmuting him. Yes, Madhumilin. Can you select unmute?
Yes. गुड इव्हनिंग सर. सर यश, मला एक प्रश्न आहे की समजा कंटेम्प्ट झाला, एक ऑर्डर असेल आणि सिव्हिल कंटेम्प्ट झाला, तर व्हॉट इज द स्टेप अ पर्सन हॅज टू टेक?
Madhusudan Kamte Sahib, Section 10 of this Act contemplates की सबऑर्डिनेट कोर्टाचा जो काही सिव्हिल कंटेम्प्ट आहे त्याला शिक्षा देण्याचा अधिकार हा उच्च न्यायालयाला आहे. त्यामुळे सिव्हिल कोर्टाला अधिकार नाहीये, क्रिमिनल कोर्टाला अधिकार नाहीये. They will have to make a reference. So therefore, if the honorable judge comes to the conclusion that the order has been breached, मग ते जज साहेब हायकोर्टाला रेफरन्स करू शकतात किंवा आपल्याला जर आवश्यक वाटलं तर आपण देखील कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्टचा अर्ज माननीय उच्च न्यायालयाकडे कलम 10 च्या अंतर्गत करू शकतात.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir, one more question that I would like to ask personally is when we talk about contempt of court, we always are remembered about the British judge, Lord Templeman. So, do we still hope that that kind of attitude we can have even in today's world, or will there be a, you can say, we have to strike a balance, or do we need a set of rules about the contempt of court in future?
सुयश प्रधान साहेब, ज्यावेळेस जबाबदारी खूप मोठी असते त्यावेळेस त्या जबाबदारीचे रूल्स लिहिण्याची गरज नसते. राष्ट्रपती साहेब, पंतप्रधान साहेब, उच्च न्यायालयाचे न्यायाधीश साहेब, सर्वोच्च न्यायालयाचे न्यायाधीश साहेब, या सगळ्यांच्या अशा प्रकारचे जे अधिकार आहेत ते अनरिटन अधिकार असावेत अशा प्रकारचा एक देखील प्रवाह आहे. पण अनरिटन अधिकार असताना, अलिखित अधिकार असताना ते खरं पाहता वापरणं फार सोपं होतं. पण लेजिस्लेटर्स थॉट इट फिट टू ब्रिंग अ फ्रेमवर्क म्हणून त्यांनी कायद्याच्या चौकटीत ते बसवलं. नुसतं असं नाही आहे तर त्याला रूल मेकिंग पॉवर दिली हायकोर्टाला आणि सुप्रीम कोर्टाला. तेव्हा माननीय उच्च न्यायालय आणि सर्वोच्च न्यायालयानं त्याला रूल्स तयार केले आणि त्याचे प्रोसिजर तयार केले. त्यामुळे आताच्या घडीला मला वाटत नाही की भारतामधले आपले सन्माननीय न्यायाधीश साहेब अशा प्रकारचं काही गडबड करू शकतील की ज्याच्या बाबतीमध्ये बाप रे तोबा तोबा असं काही म्हणण्याची शक्यता आहे. नंबर 2, या न्यायाधीश साहेबांच्या वरती आणि या संपूर्ण व्यवस्थेवरती आजही भारतामधल्या सगळ्या लोकांचा विश्वास अबाधित आहे. त्यामुळे कायद्याचा विद्यार्थी म्हणून मला स्वतःला देखील असं वाटतं की आता तरी कुठं अशी गरज दिसत नाहीये की ज्यामुळं कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्टच्या पॉवरला काही आवर घालावा, वेसण घालावे. अर्थात हे लेजिस्लेटर जे काही आहेत खासदार मंडळी ते चर्चा याच्यावरती करू शकतील. त्यांना जर वाटलं तर ते करू शकतील. या कायद्याला अजून जास्त फाईन ट्यून करणं असं त्याचं असू शकेल. पण मला विचाराल तर आता तरी सकृत अशा प्रकारचं काही मला दिसत नाहीये की ज्याच्यावरती आपण म्हणू शकतो की टेम्पल्टन साहेबांसारखा तुम्ही जो काही उदाहरण दिलेलं होतं तिथपर्यंत जायचं म्हणजे लंबक या टोकाला न्यायचा का त्या टोकाला न्यायचा अशी नेण्याजोगी परिस्थिती नाहीये. तारतम्यानं विचार करणं, साधक बाधक विचार करणं हे आपल्याला सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे. त्यामुळं आपले न्यायाधीश साहेब देखील अशाच प्रकारे आपल्या या कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्टच्या पॉवर वापरतील अशी मला कायद्याचा विद्यार्थी म्हणून नक्की आशा आहे.
थँक्यू सर. सर, आणि अजून एक प्रश्न असा आलेला आहे की तुम्ही म्हणालात त्याच्याच अनुषंगाने आलेला आहे की फ्युचरमध्ये असं काही महाराष्ट्र आणि गोवा बार काउन्सिल किंवा काही असं काही प्लॅन करू शकता का सेशन्स रिगार्डिंग म्हणजे कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्ट ऍक्ट अवेअरनेस फॉर ज्युनियर लॉयर्स? इज देअर एनिथिंग?
टू बी व्हेरी फ्रँक, या कायद्यावरती कॉन्सन्ट्रेट करण्यापेक्षा आमची बार काउन्सिल ऑफ महाराष्ट्र आणि गोवा ही अन्य कायद्यांच्या अवेअरनेस बद्दल जास्त लक्ष देईल. कारण आपल्याला लक्षात आलं असेल तर मगाशी मी स्टॅटिस्टिक्स सांगताना मुंबईमध्ये किंवा मुंबई उच्च न्यायालयामध्ये अख्खे तिन्ही बेंच पकडून गोव्याचं पकडून सुद्धा अवघे 4981 सिव्हिल कंटेम्प्ट आणि 64 क्रिमिनल कंटेम्प्ट पेंडिंग होते. म्हणजे मग अवघे 5000 अंदाजे किंवा 5500 5500 अशा प्रकारच्या प्रकरणं जर धरली तर त्याच्याकरता बार काउन्सिल ऑफ महाराष्ट्र आणि गोवानी फार काही अवेअरनेस क्रिएट करण्याची गरज नाहीये. त्याच्यापेक्षा अन्य कायद्यांच्या संदर्भात आपण करू आणि वेळ मिळाला तर हाही कायदा घेऊ. त्यामुळे या कायद्याच्या बाबतीमध्ये तालुका पातळीवरचे जे बार असोसिएशन किंवा जिल्हा पातळीवरचे बार असोसिएशन ते या संदर्भामध्ये निश्चित लेक्चर्स आयोजित करतील असं मला वाटतं.
थँक्यू सर. थँक्यू सो मच. I think questions have come to an end. So can we go to the concludatory part, sir?
Yes, please.
I request Professor Sushma Satpute, Madam, Coordinator of Anand Vishwa Gurukul College of Law, to kindly propose vote of thanks for today. Over to you, Satpute, Madam.
Thank you, Pradhan sir. It was extremely interesting and informative session, sir. Our students will definitely follow all the professional ethics, because as a lawyer, they owe certain duties to the society, to the court, and even to the judges and their colleagues. So after your session, definitely they'll follow this, sir. And even after contempt of court, which provisions and which remedies are available, you have explained it with the help of certain case laws. Sir, I express my gratitude on behalf of Sharada Education Society's Ananda Vishwa Gurukul College of Law for your presence and for sharing your valuable insights with our students. Even I express my gratitude to all the management members, our president, Mr. Vilas Tuse sir, our secretary, Dr. Pradeep Dhaval sir, our treasurer, Mr. Akshar Parasnis sir, and all the professors and all our attendees for attending this session with interest and with care. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Over to Pradhan, sir.
Thank you so much, Madam. With this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you once again, Dr. Uday Varunjikar, sir. It was a pleasure hearing you. I now end this session for everybody, so everybody's window will get closed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.